Okay. Okay, very well. So good afternoon, everyone. First thing, just a word of apology for this slight delay. I know we have some people online accompanying us and all these badges and the security and to enter, and so that's it. But we'll try to use well our time. And my name is Filipe Martins. I'm the director of JESC, also a member of the board of ELSIA. And he was supposed, well, looking to Constantine and looking to Thomas. It was Manuela Ripa was supposed to give this word of welcome. She will join us in some minutes because there was some change in the ENVI committee. And I was asking Thomas if I should ask him something at the beginning. He said, I'll do whatever you ask. I'll do whatever you ask. And so I just have 3 words, but before the 3 words, I'll ask Thomas, why did you accept this invitation?
I'd like to be taken by surprise. Well, I'm an organic farmer. I'm an Austrian organic farmer. Why did I enter politics? Because I decided that I was lucky in life. I mean, being healthy myself, having healthy children and grandchildren, living on a wonderful place on earth, but knowing that this is a privilege and the double privilege and the triple privilege, and that's why in politics. Why that's to keep the planet a lively and livable place for future generations. And there's a lot of allies doing and trying to ensure that from different sides, and that's why I accepted. And okay, I'm an organic farmer, and I work on agriculture, climate, environment since 9 years here in Parliament. I'm the coordinator for the Greens in the Agri Committee. Yeah, so I think we should talk about how we use our land, how we treat nature, how we treat the only planet by far in reach on which we are living, and not just the planet, but also how we treat animals, how we treat people. So how we, what is our stance towards living beings and life as such? And there, I think we share a lot of aims, a lot of goals, a lot of criticism, and a lot of engagement, and that's why I'm here today.
Okay, thank you. Just and so not Manuela, but Tomás. We also try to invite other MEPs, and several said they would enjoy, but you know, this a lot of things happening at the same time, a lot of meetings. Some of the people are also outside, so to have a different vision or a complementary vision on the topic. 3 simple words I want to say. So the first one I mentioned, the 2 co-organizing institutions or organizations here, JESC, the Jesuit European Social Center. We have been working on climate for some years now, bringing this face-inspired voice to the conversation. And on the other hand, also ELSIA. So ELSIA is a coalition. So in order maybe to save some time, I'll not mention, we have also some directors here, but a coalition of faith-based voices engaging not only with the faith-based world, but exactly with decision makers, with a lot of civil society organizations. We're also parts, to tell Theo, we're also part, where is Theo? Theo is there. We're also part of VEB, so it's one of the biggest players here in Europe, the European Environmental Bureau. So this first thing, the world is a chaos, and I think maybe this is a thing we all agree on, and we get out of chaos collaborating and working together. I was last week in Bonn in the climate negotiations, and Simon Steele was telling that we don't need more competition, we need collaboration. So this first thing, and to know more about JESC, know more about ELSIA, you can go to the websites. Second thing, and also a word of thanks to Stefan for being here to present the study. I don't know if all of us here around the room and the people who are accompanying us also online had the opportunity to read the study, but it's really worthwhile reading. Maybe it's dense in some moments. Stefan arrived last night, and I know he's going to ask me what I thought about the study, but I was honest with Stefan. We have been friends for many years. I told it's dense, but it's very rich. And in a sense, we already had an internal conversation about the study, and we thought it would be nice to bring it here to the Parliament to listen to different voices from environments, from young farmers of represented here by Sophie and by all of us. So the idea was not to have a lot of different people speaking fast and no time for questions at the end, but to open to a dialogue. Even this morning, Stefan was telling me, no, I will explain a bit, but then I would like to listen, different visions, how we can complement. So the study is not the final word, but it's maybe the initial word, so that we can talk together and we can reflect, connect with the CAP, so the new proposal of the Common Agricultural Policy. Also connecting, I was also, when reading for this strategic dialogue on agriculture, happened 2 years ago, and also how we can illuminate how to move together. Third thing, and I'll finish, a word of thanks for the people who accepted. So Stefan traveled a lot, Sophie also, and to you, Thomas, as immediately the accepting, and to Theo as well. And I pass the floor. This is it, the welcoming word. Also waiting in some minutes, Manuela will arrive. And also the final word of thanks to our moderator. Maybe I'll ask you to introduce yourself. And she also accepted. She just asked me, Philip, at the end, will you give me some chocolates? And I said, yes, I will give you some chocolates.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here. Good afternoon. Also for the ones that are joining us online. Well, my name is Maria Jose Cordero Fernandez. I am a researcher on agroecology. So here, very, very nice to have these amazing people in the room. I'm Nicaraguan, but I have been in Europe for the last 5 years. So my heart is with the struggles that are also facing here by farmers. And I'm very glad to be here to be the moderator of this panel. So I'm going to have a quick round of introductions just to set the floor, although we already have had some introduction. First, Dr. Stefan Einsendel. I hope I'm pronouncing it well. He works at the Munich School of Philosophy, and he's also a researcher at the Centrum for Global Fragen. So I guess also my German is not existent. But a funny fact, just to set a little bit breaking the ice here, he did a pilgrimage. So he walked all the way from Munich to Jerusalem, just for you to have in mind that. Next, I'm going to present Theo Paquet. Theo Paquet. He's a senior policy officer at the EEB, European Environment Bureau. And fun fact about him is that he used to work with GMOs before starting to work in this environmental organization. Then we have Sophie Ottner. She's a German environment and youth advocate in sustainability and working with rural youth at MIJARC, Europe. And an interesting fact of her is that she's coming from the highest in altitude region in Germany that produces wine. So she's a wine defender, even if we are here in Brussels with a lot of beers. And finally, but of course, very important, Thomas Weitz, MEP, Austrian politician, organic farmer, forester, and beekeeper. And the interesting fact is that he has a lot of female bees working to produce the honey that he harvests. So thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna give the floor now to our presenter of the day first. We're gonna have the presentation of the document that was mentioned before. Around 15 minutes. Doctor, you have 15 minutes more or less to present, and then we're gonna have a round of questions with our panelists. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the kind invitation. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm also very glad that I'm not here just as a presenter who is going to teach or preach anything to you, but I'm mainly here to listen to you and to learn from you and discuss, really to enhance the discussion about these important issues here. And this is also the main intention of this group of social of this expert panel on global economy and social ethics, a group that has been set up in 1989 to advise German bishops on questions of social justice and international justice. And only with Pope Francis, they started to realize that social ethics and ecological ethics must never be played out against each other. and we should really engage in a public debate with everyone involved, not just religious groups, but really everyone, starting with the weakest, with the most marginalized people first, and then involving everyone, from the far right to the far left to the center, really involving everyone, because we need everyone to make social ecological transformation work. And they started this this group of surveys here, which I worked on. Exit from growth, how social ecological transformation can succeed, and now ethical perspectives of global land use. And the main idea behind all of these series of studies is the idea that we should not worry and discuss so much about ideological infights. I'm myself an economist, and there's always a discussion: do we need more growth or less growth? Is growth a problem? Do we need green growth or less growth or degrowth? And one of the first findings here, let's keep these ideological discussions more or less aside and really focus on an idea which everyone can share. The idea that every living creation, especially every human being, has the same right to a decent life. A decent life. Not everyone has the right to live a life in upper luxury. It's fine if people have that, but the right we all have is for a decent life. And if we want to guarantee this in the future and for all people, we need to make sure that we can decouple this living standard from resource intensity. We need to make sure that we're not so much dependent on fossil fuels and everything, but also we need to decouple it from resource intensity. And this decoupling can only happen if we acknowledge that there is 4 different spheres for social ecological transformation that are often played out against each other. And we want to acknowledge all of them and make sure that all of them are equally addressed. So the first sphere is the economic ecological decoupling through higher efficiency and less externalization. That's something you all are very much familiar with. The idea of a polluter pays pricing of environmental use. If we make damages, we have to pay the fair price for that. Social price, but also the ecological price. And we also need more technical innovations in their widespread use. The experts we talk to are absolutely sure we have all the technology we need. We just really need to use it, and we need to use it worldwide and use to share it. But the big problem, which we all are aware of, is that during the transformation process, when we have fair prices that really reflect the influence of social issues and of ecological damages that we do, during the transformation process, the prices will probably go up. And we know that some people will profit from that, especially people with new technologies, people who have a sound education, people who could invest. They are the first one to profit, probably. In the end, we are quite sure that the prices will go down, or they will not go up higher, because we can decouple from many of these bad influences from fossil fuels and so on. But in the first beginning, we are fearing higher prices. That's why the second sphere is absolutely important, is the sphere of social compensation. One of the core findings of this expert group is we need one price for everyone, and we cannot meddle with the prices, but we need to make sure that there is a price that really reflects the environmental damage. And aside from that, in the social sphere, we need to make everyone able to pay this price and to choose freely whether they want to, how much environment they want to use or not. And the third sphere that is absolutely important is the international cooperation sphere. And we know here in the parliament that this is more difficult than ever. We're just about to write another study here by this expert group on the crisis of multilateralism. How can we engage with colleagues in the United States and China, people who apparently don't share our values anymore? They claim to, but we see that's different values, but how can we still get involved with them, because we need this international cooperation. And the fourth sphere is this cultural sphere, that we need a culture of sufficiency. If it's only about progress, new technology we have, and we don't use all the wealth we create in order to have a more inclusive way, and if we don't cherish a simple life and make sure that a life is not just it's not just about wealth, but really about the quality of all the relations we have, then we're also doomed. I'm mentioning this because there's different spheres, the sphere of the market, the social sphere, and the national sphere, and the culture of sufficiency. And the problem in many public discussions is often one sphere is played out against the other one. And we can only progress if all of them are involved at the same time. The main idea of the studies is really to involve all of the spheres immediately and to a right extent. And after the first studies were presented, we had a big hearing in Berlin and asked the experts, what is the most pressing area of social economic transformation, and which is the area where the Catholic Church might play the most positive role? And the answer for most of them is, please focus on land use. Land use is the often forgotten topic, and it's the area where the church can reach people in the big cities, on the countryside, in the global south here, and the church is a big owner of land. So we are perfectly positioned to do that, and we realize that that soil is becoming a scarce commodity for many reasons. That's something all you are very well aware of. We are losing a lot of arable land at a terrible rate. A lot of degeneration, urbanization, mining, land sealing. We need more and more area for food security, the calorie needs of a growing world population. We are very worried about the animal feed production. No one of us wants to abolish husbandry of animals. It's good to have them grazing, but it's a real problem, the animal feed production, that if it's going up worldwide, it's putting so much pressure, and we cannot afford it to continue to have more and more meat on a worldwide level. We know that we would need to set aside more space for renewable energy production. We know that it can be a potential sink of CO2, but also a great source of CO2, no matter how we use it. And there's a lot of talk, and there's good reason for saying we need to set apart more and more areas for the preservation of and promotion of biodiversity and for the resource of flood protection. And this is why soil and is not just a private good, like a handbag you can just own and buy, and you can destroy, and no one cares if you destroy your handbag. The industry is even happy about it. You're gonna buy a new one. But it's also not a public good, like the pavement, like a street or so. It's something in between. Soil is of common good character. You can own it, but you somehow owe it to the next generation. Everyone has an interest in that. And we need to make sure that it's going to the next generation in the same quality. That's what we call the common good character of these commons. And this was also the point where we had most public problems in the reception of the study, because some lobby groups were very worried about some of the political effects when we talked about remuneration and so on. But they didn't attack us about that. They just decided they want to publicly attack us about this quote of common good character, and to try to tell some German farmers that this was a communist idea, and the socialists and the bishops were going to take away the land from the farmers. The good thing is this public outcry we had really helped a lot of philosophers to become interested in farming, and it helped a lot of farmers to become very interested in philosophy. And we decided we did not want to join this culture war online, but we promised that we would go to every farmers meeting in Germany where they would invite us and talk to them personally. So I had more than 35 personal meetings with farmers. And in all these meetings, we finally found there is a lot of common ground and so much more things that we have in common that we can really build on. And the main idea, and that's also not new to all you in this place here, is what we need are multi-win strategies. We need to make sure that the same area of land is used for multiple purposes. For renewable energy production, potential CO2 sink preservation, we need triple and quadruple uses of this land. But the main problem of most of the policy at the moment is, as you all know, it's an outdated policy that incentivizes just one of them. Either we just give just the amount of money to everyone who owns land, which makes the prices go up, or we focus on one of these issues. Like there's one policy that really tries to support renewable energy production. That's where the incentives go in this one policy. And then we think, yes, there's other things. There's also preservation of biodiversity and resource and the flood protection. But we don't give any incentives to that in this policy paper. But we just add a lot of bureaucracy on top of it. And that there is hardly any idea to remunerate farmers for all the things, all this the social services and economic services that they can do with their farm, with one policy issue at the same time. When we wrote this study, it was mainly people from philosophy and ethics. So the core part was really about trying to identify our guiding principles and showing these principles are not working anymore. They have never been working, and they're gonna make a big problem in the future. It's a narrowed understanding, and let me explain it with this idea of freedom. I like to describe the neoliberal idea of freedom like lonesome cowboy ethics. It's a lonesome cowboy, and we think it's the freest person because there is no one to regulate him, no borders. He can go wherever go. Doesn't have a wife who tells him what to do. He's totally free, but he's also very lonely. But that's the neoliberal idea of freedom, no rules. And there's another idea, and an even much older idea of freedom. That's the people in the community. They have so many more options, but even also many more regulations and obligations to meet. And the core idea is, do we believe in this idea that liberty means just no rules? Or does liberty mean more options, more things we can choose from? And then this really goes, and that's what we tried to show in this philosophical side of it, really goes down to the idea of possession. Is it just unrestricted possession is something that no one can control, just me, the owner? Or is it more a thing, I share it, I share obligation with that? It goes down to nature and other things. And for time reasons, I will not go into all the details here. I just want to point out that we also, it's very important for us to also make it clear that we see that it's very difficult to present organic farming and conventional agricultures as two opposite poles. There is so many gray dots in between, and so many things they can and must learn from each other. We really want to encourage organic farming and conventional farming to learn from each other and to progress together, because we need both of them. They need to learn and progress together. But this misconceptions really leads to a status quo that's not fit for the future, problematic incentive structures, one-dimensional support policy, which does not address the worst externalization problems, and the number of farm bankruptcies still goes up, unfortunately. Hello, welcome. And this culture war mentality, which we're all suffering from at the moment. This slide here is really at the center of what we think is important. We try to show that we have a too narrow concept of efficiency, which is not wrong, but it's just too narrow. And of course, the single farmer needs to focus on land efficiency. How much yield can he or she harvest per year or in a couple of years? And of course, every farmer is an entrepreneur who needs to feed his family. And it's absolutely clear that he needs to look at business efficiency first and foremost. But if as society, if we only focus on these things, we are in big trouble. So what we need as NGOs, as society as a whole, is a broader concept of efficiency. An idea of efficiency that takes into concept the value of the ecosystemic, socioeconomic, and cultural effects of everything that farmers do in the field, and the costs and the benefits for the public. And it's important that this means that we as a society need a broader idea of land efficiency, of biodiversity, of water retention, of CO2 sink, and make sure that the farmer in his daily job can still totally concentrate on business efficiency. It would be too much to demand from every farmer that every day when they get up, they have an ethical or a moral discussion with themselves, and how much should they balance all the different interests. They should be aware of them, but it should pay off for them to really take care of these things. That's the central idea of what we are proposing. And in the study, in most of these 80 pages of the study, we really looked at all the existing policy proposals that are here already. None of the things we discussed here is new, but we tried to find, is there a common ground, and broke it down in different categories here, like shaping regulatory policy for the common good, distributing all the impositions and opportunities fairly, promote knowledge, transparency, and participation, using the cultural dimension of change, not to have culture wars, but really to come together again, and strengthening and connecting change agents. And I would like to, in the last few minutes, I would just show you some very few highlights of this study here. When I talked to one of the colleagues and some of the leading colleagues of this group, and I asked them, is there one single thing that you want to tell the members of parliament? And told me the most important thing is think big, think about area-based resource management and keep water in the landscape. When we have water in the landscape, it's good for biodiversity, it's good for retention, it's good as a CO2 sink, and it's so much more resilience for the farmers. But at the moment, we only manage it at a farm level or at a national level, and we need some level in between for regional management. And we see it as a big problem. We had so many farmers telling us that there was ideas of re-wetting. And the farmers could still work on that. And 25 farmers did agree. And the 26 farmers said no. And the entire project was that. And that's why we try to stress out in this study, there's a social obligation principle. That's in our laws. It's an old tradition. It means if I have position, there is no unlimited ownership. I have the obligation to go into a smarter cooperation and make sure that we work on that. Second thing I would like to point out is within the market sphere, this market sphere is not everything. We need an upper and a lower level. So we need to respect the planetary boundaries. But within this safe space, we really believe in the market, within the safe space. And in this market sphere, we need to fight against distorted prices and for broader participation, which means end tax subsidies and policies that don't come in, that don't support the general welfare, combat intransparency and the dominant market position of individual players. We want more farmers there. We want more retailers there. We want more people working on the ground and profiting from remuneration of these things. I could talk exclusively many things about that, but just one thing here about distributing impositions and opportunities fairly. We need to acknowledge there's always a trade-off between efficiency and justice. And no policy is totally efficient and no policy is totally just. We need to publicly acknowledge that and always make sure that we balance these two things, like having a polluter price principle at the same time accompanying fair prices with social measures. Almost the last here. It's about promoting knowledge, transparency, and participation. Just one word here. We believe that transparency is the biggest single step towards smarter participation. We need more transparency. It always pays off. Knowledge is a public good. We need to share knowledge. It's not just a private thing, but that's something we can profit from it individually, but we need to share it. We need to strengthen the rights and obligations of all social groups to have a say. It's not just the farmers, not just the politicians, but the entire village should really have a say in how does the landscape look like? How does our mother country look like? I will skip the cultural dimension of change. I could talk about this for hours. And I just want to end here with this idea that we need to strengthen and connecting change agents. And that's what we are doing here. And that's why I'm traveling wherever people invite me, because I think the change agents are so important to promote this appreciation of sufficiency and solidarity. We need to support the idea of efficiency aiming at the common good. And we are going into a direction where efficiency is becoming more and more important. Scarcity is increasing. We have more and more problems on the global scale. We need to be more efficient, but if it's an efficiency that is focused on the lonesome cowboy, on the individual player, that's a too small, too narrow idea of efficiency. We need a broad efficiency that really thinks about the common good. How can we enhance everyone and support everyone. That's the basic idea of this study and of this. And I'm very grateful that we can join together and discuss that. I'm here to learn, and I'm very grateful for this invitation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Very enlightening. I want to welcome and thank you, Manuela Riba, for inviting us here, for having us here. If you would like to say something, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And first of all, I'm so sorry that I'm late. That's not what I like, and I hate being late, but I had to be in committee at the same time because we were discussing to forbid lead in certain fishing tackles, and this concerns also our health and the environment. So I go from one health topic, environment topic, to the next one, and I would really like to welcome you all, and especially also my colleague Thomas Weitz from the Greens EFA, a farmer himself. I'm very happy to hear later on your contribution to this debate today. Dr. Einsiedel for his already presenting the study. I'm sorry that I missed the first part, but I'm happy to catch up there. And I'm particularly pleased that we're discussing these issues alongside the Jesuit European Social Center and the Laudato Si Alliance Europe. And maybe, thank you very much, Konstantin, for presenting this picture. We had the honor with our group to visit Pope Leo end of, April. And here, while shaking his hand, and I recognized it later that I was taking both his with both hands, his hand, because my message really was, please put forward, help us to put forward what Pope Franciscus brought on his way, the encyclica Laudato Si, and we need your help. And this was my message here to him. That's why I show you this picture. And he raised his eyebrows and nodded to me. So I hope that this means that he is he got the message. If you see him, you can also remind it to him. So I truly believe that church must be involved in this debate, and that's why my message to him. The transformation of our food system is not only a technical or an economic challenge, but it's also a societal one, and you already alluded to that. Question of food security, land use, biodiversity, and climate protection ultimately concerns responsibility, solidarity, and stewardship of creation. The churches can help to remind us that these ethical considerations and encourage support for the necessary changes. Before I begin, let me briefly explain where I come from politically. My party, the Ecologic Democratic Party, was founded more than 40 years ago, inspired by the ideas of the Club of Rome. Since then, we have consistently advocated for agricultural transition and for an economic system that respects planetary boundaries. Our chairman is a retired pastor, and we as party believe that caring for creation, social justice, and environmental responsibility belong together. This is one of the reasons why today's discussion is so particularly close to my heart. Agriculture lies at the heart of some of the greatest challenges facing our society today. So how do we ensure that everyone has access to healthy and affordable food? How do we protect biodiversity, our climate, and our natural resources? How do we guarantee a fair income and viable future for our farmers? These questions are deeply interconnected, and we cannot solve one without addressing the other. And you, Dr. Einsiedel, already gave us answers here. Thank you very much for that. During the last legislative period, I was shadow rapporteur on the proposed EU soil health law. Unfortunately, we were not able to secure the ambitious legislation that many of us had hoped for. However, we did manage to achieve an important step forward with the adoption of a soil monitoring law. Finally, we also have a law on soil. We had it for water, we have it for air quality, we never had it for soil. So this is a first step to have a soil monitoring law. for sure it is certainly not enough. Healthy soils are the foundation of our food system. Around 95% of our food depends directly or indirectly on healthy soils. Yet across Europe, soils are under enormous pressure, from erosion to pollution to sealing to biodiversity loss and the impacts of climate change that we can feel at the moment with 3 weeks of over 35 degrees. This is really something extremely challenging. If we continue to degrade this precious resource, we are undermining the very basis of our food system. And this brings us to common agricultural policy. The CAP remains the largest item in the EU budget. It therefore has enormous potential to drive positive change. And Thomas knows that we are asking for this positive change for how many years now? 20, 30, 40? No, a long, long time. But too often public money is still distributed without sufficient regard for public goods. Society expects agriculture to deliver. We need a fundamental reform of the agricultural policy. And you already said it, public money should pay for public goods. Farmers who protect biodiversity, restore soils, safeguard water resources, reduce pesticides use, improve animal welfare, and contribute to climate protection should be rewarded accordingly. The CAP must become a true instrument for sustainability, resilience, and rural development, because this is also a lot about resilience that people often forget. At the same time, we must ensure that farming remains economically viable, particularly for young farmers. If we want a sustainable food system, we need a new generation of farmers who can make a decent living while caring for the land. This is why the recent developments concerning new genomic techniques very much concern me. You maybe have heard it. We had a vote last week in the plenary. And there we weakened safeguards for many genetically modified plants. Important risk assessment, traceability, and labeling requirements are being removed for many NGT1 plants, even though these plants can contain up to 20 genetic modifications. This weakens transparency and consumer choice and makes it more difficult for GMO-free and organic farmers to protect their production system. Another major concern of these NGT regulations is the issue of patents. Only 2 years ago, the European Parliament called for a broad ban on patents on NGT plants. Unfortunately, this demand disappeared during the negotiations. The risk increasing the market power of a few large seed and agribusinesses corporations is there, and this will create new dependencies for farmers. Of course, we need innovation in agriculture. There's no question about it. But innovation must not come at the expense of transparency, of consumer choice, of biodiversity, or the precautionary principle. Citizens have a right to know how their food is produced. Farmers have a right to choose what they grow. And we have a responsibility to protect nature for future generations. As Christians, we are also reminded that creation is not ours to exploit without limits. It is entrusted to us. This is where the contribution of the churches and faith-based organizations is so important. Pope Francis reminded us at Laudatio Si that environmental degradation, social injustice, and economic inequality are not separate crises, but different dimensions of the same challenge. He called for an integral ecology that recognizes the interconnectedness of people, nature, and future generations. And this message remains as relevant as ever. Protecting biodiversity, preserving fertile soils, ensuring food security, and supporting rural communities are not only political objectives, they are also moral responsibilities. That is why I'm grateful for the study presented today by the German Bischofs Conference. We need these ethical perspectives in our political debates. Europe farmers cannot achieve this transformation alone. They need fair markets, supportive policies, long-term certainty, and strong societal and political backing. That is why I'm happy to also have the young farmers on board. We need you and we need your voice in this transformation out of the current agricultural system. If we want to leave, and here I conclude, a livable planet for future generations, we must act now. We need healthy soils, we need a resilient food system, we need a CAP that rewards sustainability, and we need courage to place the common good at the center of our decisions. So thank you very much for being here today. And before we will hear the contributions, I really would like also to thank my office that they made this event today here possible. Thank you very much to Konstantin and to Letizia, and very much looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so to start the panel, we're going to have the first round of interventions. Each panelist is going to have around 5 minutes to share their contribution. First question would be, from your perspective, what is the study's most valuable contribution? And looking ahead, what aspects will you strengthen to develop further or to increase the relevance and impact of the study? So I'm going to invite first Theo to share first your opinions, and then we move in order. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really like the initial point, I think it was made by you, Felipe, on the we need more collaboration, not competition. Unfortunately, I don't think that's very much the case, and I don't see it changing in the future. You mentioned the strategic dialogue, but as we all saw, it was a great achievement, but now it's been, I don't want to say thrown in the bin, but a lot of actors that were there at the table have kind of moved back on their position. When it comes to the study, a couple of very interesting points, and I think overall we agree on almost everything. And I think it's rare that I'm on a panel where I agree with absolutely everything these days. I liked the common lens approach and also this broader definition of efficiency. So this, because we're always talking about competitiveness today, and it's always very much a focus on yield. Farmers need to produce, food security, etc. But I mean, what's the point of being competitive today if in 10 years or 15 years you can't produce anymore and you have to import everything? For us, there's very limited attraction there. And also, this point that you raised on freedom, I think is key. Because especially when it comes to pollution in agriculture. So the fact that personal freedom is not unlimited, I think in the study it's mentioned, yeah, it ends where the freedom of others begin. I think that's critical because, yes, agriculture as is a key actor in society and it's a key sector, but it is also true that a lot of agriculture pollutes. It pollutes water, CO2 emissions, etc., and this needs to be tackled. And this is we need to tackle this as a society. And finally, yeah, maybe one last point, more specific, but I really liked, is on this rewetting that you mentioned, these rewetting efforts, and that's often very much lacking. Most of the incentives that you find in the CAP today for farmers to uptake environmental practices are often one measure. Eco schemes, and usually the unfortunate side of things is that the most popular measures are the ones that require the least amount of efforts. I mean, you see in France, eco schemes are basically the majority, I think above 90% of eco schemes, farmers could apply with them without changing their practices. That's a lot of public money that's being given for nothing. I mean, you could argue that they would have gone away from those practices, but still. So for us, like really pushing for schemes that are high level, so landscape level, as you mentioned, but also farm level. So you look at all the dimensions of resilience on a farm. This is very much where the key focus of the next CAP should be. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so at the beginning, I think we're supposed to say a bit about our background. So just to order in that, so yes, I'm coming from a village where the wine sector is very present in that moment. And with the youth association in my country, we also have lots of farmers we're working together with. And I studied sustainable business administration and wrote my thesis in my master's about biological certification in regards of marketing in the wine sector. So I worked for around 2 years, very close together with a small family wine business. And also the kids of this family are part of the youth association. So that's why, yeah, we are very familiar, I would say at the end of the day, how the life also for young farmers or for potential young farmers is, what are their concerns or why they also are not so sure if they really want to become farmers at the end of the day, and yeah, still keep up the family business. So for me, the study once again highlights the urgent need for taking action by presenting numerous global facts. It emphasizes the necessary changes we need to make sure that life on Earth can still be feasible in the future. And one of the main strengths of the study is the call for and the concept of integrated solutions, as we and as Theo already mentioned. So as well as the definition of soil and the Earth atmosphere as common goods. At the same time, the study highlights that the principles of sufficiency and circular economy are already deeply rooted in the daily life of farmers. And particularly among small farmers, families, what I see is that land is already viewed as a valuable natural resource and asset, and not just as a business resource. However, this understanding tends to be lost as farm sizes increase. In addition, large areas of monocultures are increasingly being cultivated to boost profits. The lack of adequate, fair, and appropriate financial remuneration for ensuring our daily bread is a significant factor in this regard, and serving as a recurring reason for certain actions and measures that are not in line with climate protection and biodiversity. Another aspect that is highlighted is education, particularly education for sustainable development. And it's one of the most important factors on the path to food security. For humanity, education is like one of the most valuable assets a person can ever possess. Why? Because like knowledge is something that nobody can ever take from us. It's something we will ever have, and it's why education is such a fundamental issue, both in the ethical guidelines and in relation to participation and equality. The study also highlights that increased gender equality leads to higher productivity and healthier diets, which I found very interesting, and that greater decision-making power for women results in businesses that are more economically sustainable in the long term. Plus, the study shows that global food production would increase more significantly than through any other single measure. So that was something that was like very interesting to really see and to see it in fact. The final point I would like to emphasize concerns the commissioning body of this study, and with it the Catholic Church. Although the study was commissioned by the Catholic Church in Germany, ultimately it is always the Catholic Church as a whole church for the whole world, in which we are all united under the Pope. And it's very nice that you already met the Pope and had the possibility to talk to him, because yeah, I think that also he can have a huge impact at the end of the day. And the Catholic Church is held responsible in 3 aspects, like the facilitator of the dialogue, an advocate for the common good, and as a role model. And I think the Church is aware of its responsibility, but now it's a matter of fulfilling this responsibility and taking action. One aspect I would like to highlight more strongly than the study did is the importance of intergenerational justice. So the study states that it is important to enable a good life for everyone now and in the future. And climate protection and sustainability, according to the SDGs, are central issues, particularly in Catholic youth organizations, which are also mostly organized on a grassroots and democratic basis. And then their actions and goals, they're often already more sustainable than most of the dioceses in the countries. And this may, of course, be due to the size of the organizations and flatter hierarchies. However, it is important not only to pay attention to intergenerational justice in name only, but also to develop actions and measures in collaboration with all generations. So for that, the mean age in the European Parliament is 50, and the majority of the MEPs are between 40 and 44 years old. And with an average life expectancy of around 82 years old in Europe, they have already reached the halfway point in their lives. Their everyday realities can not be compared with those of young people, and also their youth had been different than the life and the life circumstances of the current young generations, and the problems we are facing all in our daily lives and our realities we live in. And it is our future, and young people must be heard, not only spoken about. It's already what also Manuela said. And we want to be involved and given a voice. And politics must be shaped with young people and not over their heads. And that's how I want to conclude, because the fact that we have the opportunity today to make our voice heard is already an important step. But we need more of these spaces, and more politicians must realize that it is a perspective that is underrepresented very often in their work of the daily politics. Thank you.
I was chatting a bit with Manuela because I said, well, what would you like to hear from me now? Huh? Because, I mean, you were opening quite a broad field, and you want me to react in 5 minutes, which is fairly impossible. But I can just say I would sign up to basically everything you presented. And also your introductory remarks, I could sign up to every single word. So I thought I will not repeat what you have said already, what you just highlighted, but rather maybe react on some of the things that I've heard already. In your study, what I find really interesting is that you also highlight this economic standpoint. So you say you're an economist, and I think it's important to have this additional view. And then you talked about, should we discuss growth or less growth, or sustainable growth, or no growth, or degrowth? I know all these debates. I'm with the Greens since 25 years, so you can imagine how many debates about growth and degrowth I had in my life. When you talk to farmers, as a farmer, it's about growth, always. For farmers, the concept of no growth or degrowth is a difficult one, because you plant something so it grows. I do forestry, so it grows. I do animal husbandry, so they grow. So the concept of something not growing is a very difficult one for farmers, just to mention that. So I think this debate is not the one you can actually have with farmers. How much yield? Well, let's stay in this kind of capitalistic world that we're living in, and let's say for the moment that's the world we're living in, and we're not going to substantially change the rules from today to tomorrow. Well, how much yield? What I find astonishing again and again is that we're not making the full calculation. We're now, I find myself in Agri Committee. We now have a crisis. The artificial fertilizers, they're so expensive. Again, third time in my 9 years here, we finally find out that we're dependent on imports. And we finally find out that if fertilizers go to sustain on the market our production anymore. So surprise, surprise. Once again, we're finding ourselves in this situation. But for me as an organic farmer, I'm sitting in there and I'm like, yeah, I don't have any problem with more expensive artificial fertilizers. I think it's fantastic. Make them double the price, because maybe then we start to think about how we can reduce our dependency. But just to make this one example, you know, what is yield? What is efficiency? What I produce with sun, soil, rain, and that's it, basically. That's it. And yes, my harvest might be a third less, but my inputs are 95% less. Yes, again, organic, you still need the one or the other thing. So what is efficiency? Look, if we really do the calculation, and I put my organic colleagues against conventional colleagues, and then we really go through the whole calculation, also how much soil we abuse or use, how much do we absorb, yeah? How much damage do we do, how much pollution do we produce, or the other way around, how much clean water do we produce, how much CO2 do we store in the soil. If you do the full calculation, organic is unbeatable when it comes to efficiency and also yield in relation to input. So what I find astonishing is that in this whole capitalistic argumentation, not even the math works. It's not, you know, it's not efficient the way we produce today, especially not in the long term. So I find it very important that you raise this kind of point of view, and I think it's also something we should talk about. Productivity, it's actually the exact same question. Productivity, is it only productivity from the amount of tons that leave my field? But then coming back to farmers, we have to acknowledge that the farming world is a dying one. I mean, I don't have the numbers by heart now, but I mean, we're losing 800 farms every single day in the European Union. Farming, family farming, is dying out slowly but surely. And this is the reality when we talk to farmers and about farmers. Most of my colleagues, maybe except the ones that are really big, are struggling on a daily basis to sustain their livelihoods. You said, well, young people are thinking twice. Yeah, because young people are well educated today and they can calculate. And they start to calculate, and then they're telling their fathers and mothers, okay, you have an average income of €2.20 per hour. Why do you think I should ever do that? I mean, I can go, you know, I mean, farmers are very welcome in construction, in road building. Yeah, many of us are educated. We're very welcome in many sectors. You have a proper pay. You have a job from 9 to 5. After 5, you drop everything and you go home and you have free time. There's no cow in the stable giving birth to a calf. There's no, you know, storm blocking your road because the trees fall. You know, you just go home and have weekend. You have a weekend. You have something called holidays. Describe that concept to farmers, family farmers in the European Union. So I think it's very important to acknowledge most of the farmers I know, they are well aware about the value of their soil. They are well aware that we need to work with nature, and we can try against nature for a certain amount of time, but at the end of the day, you know, we're that big in nature. So farmers well understand that. But the point is, if you earn 150 to 250 euro per hectare, how many hectares do you need to run to feed a family? If you earn 80 euros per pig that you produce for slaughtering, how many pigs do you need to feed a family? So we need to acknowledge that it's too easy to say, well, farmers will want this and farmers will want that, and you're polluting and you need to change your strategy. Is it just doable with taxpayers' money? So to say, well, some more environmental schemes and we give you a bit more here, a bit more there. No, it's the market as such. And we in the European Union, we have decided we want to play a role in the world market. We're part of the world market. We're the biggest agricultural importers of the world and the biggest agricultural exporters of the world. And as long as we don't understand that we're ruining our ability to sustain our own population over time, that we're losing the ability to do farming in a sustainable, long-term sustainable way through that, and that we're losing our farmers basically on that and replacing them with industrial business cases. If we don't understand that this is the path that we're moving to, then it doesn't look all too bright for our family farms. Yeah, I mean, I'm negotiating common agricultural policy for the third time now, but maybe that's for another point in the.
Thank you so much. Now I'm exactly going to invite you to see how can we relate what we have discussed in the study and also your different inputs discussion of the common agricultural policy right now. How do you relate to what it's happening, but also how will you perceive a change is needed? So, Theo.
Okay, where do I start? Okay, I mean, maybe starting with fairness and justice as a broad principle that was proposed. That's perhaps one of the points where the Commission tried to propose something with what they call digressivity uncapping. So basically, the more land you have for the extra hectares that you have, you get less money from the direct income support. And this is capped at 100,000 euros. Unfortunately, this is limited in our perspective, especially in a budget that is increasingly limited, and it's not going to change. I mean, maybe this time they might be able to raise the budget for farming a little bit in this parliament. We will see. But it's unlikely that in the long term you're going to see a substantial increase of this money for farmers. It's most likely going to go down with all the other priorities. So for us, this money should be spent on actual targeted measures rather than direct income support. So that would be one. Secondly, on planetary physical limits, etc. I mean, it's there, it's in the proposal, it's one of the objectives, of course, but again, it's not prioritized. This is not the priority of this proposal. I mean, 60 to 80% of the money is still going to go to direct income support. I mean, this is clear. You can say it's one of the priorities, but if most of the money is going one direction and not the other, then you've clearly made your choice. So for us, again, and this is the main call for environmental NGOs, is to restore some amount of ring fencing for environmental incentive measures. We've told farmers we're going to support them for those ecosystem services. Yes, I completely agree that it should be from the market, first and foremost. Won't be dealt with in the CAP, more in the Common Market Organization and other measures. That is critical. Also, trade has to be taken into account. But when it comes to ecosystem services and helping farmers take that step into building resilience on their farms, to climate adaptation, to climate defense, this is where public money comes in. And this is where money should be put on the table to help a farmer take this first step, or maybe take the next 5 steps if they're doing a full transition towards a different system. And that's clearly lacking in the current proposal, especially as we have, and I say we, in a loose sense of the word, but through the strategic dialogue, there was an agreement between all the stakeholders that there would be less regulation and more incentives. This has been a big call from farmers. Look, we're doing a lot of efforts, pay us to do this effort. As environmental NGOs, we still think there should be a number of rules, especially regulation that exists today should be a basic rule that should not be bypassed, and oftentimes it's not implemented properly. So we're moving towards this incentive, but if you're not giving them dedicated funding, then it's all, again, empty words. So for us, yes, there's positive aspects, and a couple of others maybe quickly mentioning. Extensification of livestock is mentioned a lot. And diversification of farms, more mixed farms. So all of those farms are more resilient, more support for protein crops. So all of those to reduce our dependency on third world country. As Thomas has mentioned, we keep having crises. We need to learn from it. So there's a couple of positive elements clearly in the Commission proposal. But again, if you don't put the money where your mouth is, then for us, it's not going to do much.
Thank you. Before giving the floor, Sophie, I will invite you to do it in 2-3 minutes, considering the time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe just to start with, also Thomas already mentioned a lot, I think, which is in some way reflecting this question. But during writing my thesis, I also came to the point where Stefan talked about before, that we cannot have a kind of either biological or ecological or conventional farming aspects, but we need to combine both of them, and we cannot have a fight in between them. And at the end of the day, I also came to the point that a sustainable way of farming is not the biological farming. There is still like a very huge way, and still under certification, there are lots of lacking parts that are not leading to a sustainable, or that open the floor to not having a sustainable farming if the farmers themselves don't have the opportunities or don't want to do it. And in order to address local and global environmental problems, a shift in daily consumption towards sustainable, or at least more environmental friendly consumption patterns is necessary. And however, to meet this increased demand, producers must also provide a greater and more sustainable supply. And this objective should also be clearly reflected in the CAP. So as Thomas already mentioned, there are lots of challenges they are facing. And as well, like the problem is that if we compare most of the other sectors that are producing goods, the prices were rising in the last years. And at the same time, people were spending more money for it. But if we regard the food sector, whilst in, like, I only have numbers for Germany, but I think it's still a good comparison in general. So whilst in Germany in the 1970s, around 25% of income was spent on food. By 2022, it's only not even 15%. So that already shows also a problem of perspective, and also, yeah, the problem of people that are spending or often unwilling to pay more for it. And beside that, very few people are prepared to pay also the opportunity costs of food when it comes to climate change and biodiversity. So the current proposal for the CAP largely acknowledges the problems, but it lacks concrete solutions and mandatory EU-wide standards, particularly with regard to planetary boundaries, regulatory policy, and human rights. So as Thomas already mentioned, becoming a farmer is not just a normal job with vacation, with holidays, with weekends. It's really adapting to the nature and living with the nature and working in the nature. So they live for their work, they adapt to the weather, and they give everything to ensure that we have food security for these 450 million people in Europe. The logical consequence of the current situation is that in order to survive in the agricultural sector, that land must be farmed more intensively and more economically efficiently. And the simplest way to achieve it is by expanding the farm and thereby increasing the area under cultivation. Like, they would like to do it differently if they could, but they just cannot. So in the long term, the destruction of the ecosystem means there will be no more life on Earth. EU-wide standards are needed that are not neglected on the grounds of competitiveness with other countries, as it is the case in some parts in the current proposal of the CAP. So there's a need for greater distribution, whereby large farms are no longer favored, particularly through area-based payments. And the first step was already taken in the last CAP, but like where they increased the subsidies for the first 40 hectares. But now in the current draft, it proposes a maximum subsidy of 100,000 euros for large-scale farmers. This is still like a very, very huge amount. So it would be better to have a maximum subsidy of 1,000 euros or even less, to have like even some huge farmers that are affected by it. So sustainable agriculture also requires a social dimension. And there's currently a lack of binding standards and controls to ensure fair working conditions and wages across all sectors. So stronger market regulation is needed to guarantee fair prices and prevent unfair competition. And creating a sustainable agriculture sector that can successfully navigate structural change and be financially secure is a task for the entire society. And this requires a debate across the society, but it also demands public awareness of the issues. Clear policy regulations with appropriate incentives, and finally, a change in behavior by both producers and consumers. So for the new CAP to bring real change, there must be a clear and unambitious prioritization of small-scale farming, climate action, and equity, with EU-wide standards and concrete targets that actually lead to change.
Thank you. Thomas? In brief words.
May I ask first, will we do another round afterwards, or what's, because I need
I
to know.
would suggest that we add a third question, but so to have some room for questions.
Yes.
So you would answer, then we would have to invite you 10 minutes to some questions, but then I'll have a final word of each one of you.
I'll do it as
Would
work
like
wraps.
this. Yes,
Yes.
to everyone.
Okay, let me start with the so-called income support. Income support is not income support, but it's compensation for world market prices. This is the truth. But as World Trade Organization would make us quite some troubles if we openly admit that we're just subsidizing our farmers to produce for world market prices. We call it income support. It's not. And that's why this battle is so hard on hectare base, because in fact, if you don't get this additional money per hectare, you can't produce anymore for the prices that you get for the market, and you rather do not produce rather than produce with a deficit. That's the reality on the ground. Capping at 100,000, I was pretty pleased to see this presented by Christoph Hansen. I was part of the group that fought that through as a parliament position last cap, and it was wiped off the table even before negotiations by the council. They were not even ready to discuss that with us. So to see it coming now from the commission was very encouraging. Also the degressivity. It would not affect 99.5% of all farms. It would affect 0.5% of the farms, while many of these farms are not farms, but international business cases. But, and just to also give you this point for your food of thought, there are certain concepts of community farming that are enshrined in legal persons that then kind of look as they would be a company running a farm bigger than the share of 100,000 euros. Very much in Eastern Germany, you have the former communist LPGs that are now run by 3 or 4 or 5 farmers' families. But formally, they're a company running 2,000 hectares and they get 300,000 euros. There is in Italy, there is farms run by workers. It's community-based, common goods oriented. In German is a better word, Gemeinwohlorientierung, which means kind of common interest orientation. Yeah, doesn't sound that communist, by the way. Yeah, but also public good is maybe the better wording than common good, and there cannot be any misunderstandings here. So there's certain concepts where we really need to be careful. Even if we manage a capping, we need to make sure that we don't hit the wrong people that are actually doing an excellent job on the ground. Yeah? Just to have this mentioned. Same comes for degressivity. Yes, today also another number, 20% of farms absorb 80% of the funds. Good. Yeah, you said share the amount of income that goes for food today. In some countries like ours, it's more towards 10 or 11%. Yes, but you also have to understand that the amount of income that you spend for rents today has substantially increased. So the calculation is not that easy. But now the question is, okay, if we need to increase prices for food production that respects the common goods, will then parts of the population be excluded from being able to buy it? Because we have parts of population that are not easily spending their money. Yes, but then let's look on the share of income. Who has what share of income in the whole business case? If you look at the whole business case, machinery earns, chemical earns, the providers earn, the processors earn, the retailers earn. They all have a fantastic business case. The only ones in this whole calculation that are struggling to survive are the farmers. And I see more the solution there. We need to find ways to ensure that farmers get a fair price while consumers don't pay more, which means reducing the share of income of the business cases in between. And that's a very difficult battle, I can tell you. But in fact, that's where the money is diluted to other interest groups rather than consumer or the ones that want to establish a system that works for all of us. And this is also, I mean, I have to say this, yeah, we're now in a phase after the Green Deal phase where fossil fuel industry strikes back. And I'm not cynical about that. We have to be aware that this is some of the most valuable shareholder companies of the world. A CEO of a shareholder company is bound by law to maximize profit. If they don't do so, they have a criminal court case. Yeah? So we have to be aware. And this is a sector that is invested with billions and trillions of money. Oil platforms, refineries, pipelines, you know, take it all. And they fight for their business. We have to be aware that, and we need to also find solutions, build bridges to these companies so they can actually be part of the transition rather blocking the transition. This is something that is going on out there. Organic and conventional. I'm very much on your side. Look, organic is a business case. Organic is a promise from farmers to consumers that we're saying we try to harvest, we try to work as environmentally friendly as we can. It's a certain, you know, you have agriculture that's from very dark to very bright, and you have all shades of gray in between. And somewhere we draw a line and say, okay, if you meet it, if you manage to get over this line, you can claim that you're organic. If you're just below that line, you cannot. But it's actually absolutely true. We have all kinds of also agroecological methods, and we need to build these bridges because also if you stay conventional, you can do a lot of smart decisions. And so we need to really, I mean, I'm very much supporting that we don't need to think into sectors here. One reflection, size does not always mean income. And that's a very interesting experience of many, many farmers in the sector. And I think this is something we should build on. Build these, show these examples. And there it comes also to the way we distribute food. Public procurement. How is that organized? Do we have public procurement that really sources in the region? And there, I just use this 1 minute also towards the Catholic Church. Where is the food for your kitchens coming from? Where are you sourcing it? How is your land used? If you're leasing your land, is it a precondition that it's organically farmed or at least agroecologically farmed? Is there black lists of companies? Is there white lists of companies? Is there any reactions, political reactions to political actors that claim that they're speaking in the name of Christianity while they speak in the name of the destroyers of this planet? Is there any, you know, outspoken reaction? So there is a lot to do here and a lot to cooperate. And I think, I mean, yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm working here in the House, yeah, with a majority that even the far right claims that they're defending Christian values, you know, and the farmers, they claim to defend rural areas. My colleagues from conservatives, yeah, there's still some that uphold the principles I would expect from a conservative party, yeah, but you're fewer and fewer, and it's harder and harder for you people, yeah. There, some support would be needed, and some cooperation would be needed, urgently. Yeah, maybe I stop here.
Let me briefly add some things. I'm not going to repeat everything because a lot of already had been said. Of course, we need a holistic approach. Of course, we have to start from education, right from the very beginning, in the kindergarten, at home, in the schools. What is healthy food? Where does it come from? How do you grow your food? And starting from there. Then regarding education, we of course need also education of farmers. more in sustainable agriculture. I don't think that there's enough done. Also in forestry, we still have very old methods, and they're very slowly adapting to new realities. So here we need to change. We need a change in our consumption, what we eat, and here, of course, I'm always asking the question: why is healthy food so expensive and unhealthy food so cheap? So here, of course, we need fiscal incentives regarding fruit, vegetables, that it's an easy choice, not a difficult choice. I mean, I'm saying that mother once said to me, I can only afford fruit and vegetable for my children when it's on sale. This is a political failure, I have to say. And there we have to go. Public procurement, you already mentioned it. Exactly. The churches, where they have also school, kindergartens, where do you get your food from? Hospitals. So there's a lot to do. But if we want a change in this house, in this parliament, if we want a political change, then we really need the church and we need the farmers. We need the farmers. I would like to see that they stand up like they stood up for Mercosur, protesting in front of the European Parliament. What did they do here in front of this house? They were putting fire everywhere. They were destroying statues. To say we don't want Mercosur. Why don't they stand up saying we want a fair income, we want a change of our agricultural system, we want protect our environment, everything. This is what we need in order to really get a change. I'm very sorry to say so. I'm also for some years in this house now, and I see how politics is done. So we really need the support from the farmers coming and saying to the politicians, no, this does not work. This helps a chemical company, it does not help me. And then maybe we will see some changes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to have a round of questions. Because of time, I'm going to invite one or two burning questions in the room. I will invite to first introduce yourself and then ask a concise question. And if it's directed to someone or to all of them. Thank you.
Okay, so Leonard Mitzi, I'm from the European Commission. I did 20 years, 10 years in Agri and 10 years on international cooperation. Now I am advisor in INTPA. So all this is very important, very critical, but we are in a geopolitical context, which in my history in 20 years, this is the most complicated moment ever. So what you're saying, Stefan, is good, but I'm sorry to say it's textbook style. It's not geopolitically sort of resonating with the politics of this house, of the commission. It's a reality that we are in a transactional system where it's tit for tat. You see what's happening, China, EU, US, and politicians don't want to change the status quo because status quo is a bit a complicated issue to unravel. With elections, MFF, we saw what happened in the European Council of a few days ago. There's an impasse. And if we want to go into the idea of what I call bundled solutions, we do bundled solutions. Bundled solutions are super complicated. They take time. In INTPA, we do a lot of agroecology, but these are small. They are not scalable. And now we are told to be scale, meaning transformational. Multilateralism, really under a lot of pressure. But we want to be transactional, meaning we look at member states to see what member states can do vis-a-vis the UN. I deal with drone-based agencies. It's going to be extremely complicated. You know, the Pope was in WFP today. The money is draining and even our member states are cutting. So we have to do a bit of a soul-searching exercise, what we can do and should do as member states to try to save the world. But we can't save the world on our own because we don't have the money to save in a context, you know, you spoke about fertilizers, fertilizer action plan. We're doing work on green ammonia. It's good to speak about the transitioning on green ammonia and green fertilizers and how speed of green ammonia is, and from where do we source green ammonia? Paraguay, Namibia, and international cooperation. This will take time. It will take ages in terms of scaling innovation, very clearly. But I think what I would say, not in terms of questions, but in terms of thinking, because we deal with the Committee on World Food Security, something like the CFS, maybe some of you know, the CFS risks to be totally decimated because there's no money for CFS. No one is paying CFS except us as EU. And there's a bit of Swiss money, chipping in money because it's important. I was trained by the Jesuits, so I am very much into solidarity, but we're all accept solidarity mode now, because if you are transactional, it is, I want to survive first, and maybe we'll see tomorrow whether others will survive. So trade is important, not much factored. There is a bit of trade bashing in some of your, but trade is there and it will survive and it will prosper. We saw it in COVID, we saw it in the post-conflict on Ukraine, trade, and you see it as well. Mercosur happened still. There is Mercosur.
Sorry to cut. No, and thanks for the reaction. That's it. Maybe just to have some room to react.
And then it requires clearly inter-DG collaboration with all this, inter-committee collaboration, and inter-institutional collaboration. That has to be synchronized to work what was mentioned by Stefan. Those alignments are not happening and might not happen in the coming weeks and months. There's no alignment of the stars for all this transformation to happen at speed in 12 months, because that is what we need. Speed in 12 months if we want to hit the new MFF in the coming 12 months.
Maybe we'll just collect another one and then to ask for reactions. And thanks for speaking out your mind. Some other comments or yes?
Hello, thank you. I'm Annalena and I work for NABU, an environmental NGO from Germany. I'm also from a farm, so I want to just thank you all because I really feel like you managed to capture the complexity of being a farmer today and how many challenges they have to face. And my question in the context of this parliament would be, what is the most effective, what is the most realistic measure we can still get into this cap to make a difference? Because I'm working on it and I am wondering how much hope we can have with the next cap.
Reactions?
First of all, I'm very, very grateful for your comments. On Wednesday, we will start writing a new study on the crisis of multilateralism. And there is we know we need to speed up this entire process. And trade is so important. So I'd be very grateful just to stay in contact with you and to learn from you more on that. One hope that we have, we'll be a part of a global church. And we have people on the far right in the United States. We have people everywhere in the world. And we still hope that we still can connect somehow, that there is still some basis left and that we can use this as a starting platform for deeper dialogue and that we can really somehow save international cooperation because we need it. But we also need to make sure that that business people here in Europe really see that it's not just about ethics, but ethic really serves them. It's in their interest. It's not just a very abstract moral discussion, but it's in their interest. We want everyone to be at the table, everyone involved, because we really believe in the common good. And for the most effective things,
Yes, to your question, thank you, and it's nice that you're here. So I think one of the most important things at the end of the day, and it's as well what the whole European Parliament set as a goal for their current period, is to ensure fair and a fair income for the the farmers and the agriculture sector. And I think that if we want to have a future in agriculture in Europe, it's one of the most important things, because at the moment, if I look at the average income, that what farmers get is like around 60% of average income. So to really ensure that there is going to be a future, we need to tackle this thing, because in a world where it's unsure if you can still have your business tomorrow, if you need to decide if you can still grow or not, but then still you're not sure if you can survive as a farmer, it's a time where you don't want to become one. And if we look at how like around 12% only of farmers are under 40, so you can see how close we are to the end of agriculture in Europe. And this is like, I think, one of the points where we can at least have some changes.
I'm going to invite for the final remarks. Thank you.
So maybe first to the colleague of the Commission. Today, Commission very often are the grown-ups in the room. Just to make one thing clear, I don't know if this shows a positive development of the Commission or the very negative development of the Parliament. But so, I mean, the proposal that came from Hansen contains some positive news. I mean, the fact that the capping at 100,000 is proposed is a strong signal. But also, I think what you can expect is some positive news on generational renewal. I think what you can expect is that I see a certain chance to uphold social conditionality, which is, I think, a very important aspect that we should not forget, because what we see in agriculture in some of our member states is pure abuse of vulnerable communities. And this puts all the ones in agriculture that employ formally correct and under social standards, it brings these in a very difficult position, because it's just an unfair competition, and you don't have, you can't compete with abuse. Yeah. So there also this kind of unfair trading practices that we try to work on, that's also something that you might expect. I mean, the big black box is that we're basically everything that goes towards environment, climate, and so on, we're handing over to member states, and then good luck with the member states. And let's see if they do something for environment, climate, or if they support their farmers, especially, and you mentioned it a bit, it's a very bad time to start farming, because first of all, if you see who takes the risk in farming, it's the farmers. You invest your work time, you invest the production goods, you invest the seeds, you invest your diesel, whatever, and then you're just hoping. First, you hope that there's no climate effects, drought, floods, whatever, killing your harvest in the first place. And then second, you hope that at the end of the day, there will be a market price that allows you to survive. And this risk is getting bigger and bigger, and with climate on top, on market risks. So what you might also see coming from this cap is de-risking strategies. So really public money also invested into insurance schemes. Might sound contradictory now, but the insurances, they can calculate. And they're then telling the farmers, look, guys, we're insuring your apple production if you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 measures to limit the risk. Or we will be ready to give you an insurance for your crop field, but you need to do this and this measures to actually diminish or minimize the risk, and that will have a positive effect. So our models of Hagelversicherung in Austria and Germany are now serving a bit as a role model for the European level. But then I come to back to you, Commission. The fact that we're treating essential foodstuffs as commodities that are not just traded on stock markets, there's reasons for that, but that you can speculate on those. That is something I think we should draw a red line also as a European Union, and to say speculation with essential foodstuff means speculating with people dying from hunger. And this should be a red line. Contracting, de-risking, and so on, yes. But speculation with food prices has to be a no-go and should be unacceptable for the European Union. So yes, we're part of the world and we will be part of the world, but at some points I think we have to draw red lines. Just to mention this one here at this moment. Yeah, and generally, I mean, on trade, you know, we don't make the full calculation. If we support our farmers to produce animal friendly, climate friendly, environmental friendly, and then we just put them into a competition that is not respecting these rules. And I mean, I've been to Brazil twice. You know, we're feeding our pork with soy, and that soy is produced. Either it's produced on deforested areas, but even if it's not produced on deforested areas, I thought I have an imagination what a 5,000 hectare big field means. Because I'm a farmer, I know what hectares are. I didn't have an imagination. If you stand in front of a monoculture, a destructive monoculture causing saltification, erosion, destroying the soil, and just it's from the horizon to the horizon, and that's what we're importing, and that's what we're supporting. I can talk about palm oil. I could go a long list. We need to be true to ourselves. If we do climate policy here, then let's apply the same standards also when it comes to trade. And there's the gap. It's not about trade or no trade, but how do we do trade and under what standards? And I think there we not us too personally, but also me as a representative of a parliament and the commission, there's a need to discuss more.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna give the floor, Manuela. Thank you.
Very, very briefly. There's a book which title is We Only Have 60 Harvesters Left with the current agricultural system. And in order that this does not become reality, we need, and it was already mentioned twice here, we need more collaboration, not competition. And we all have to work together for sustainable common agricultural policy. And I will say it again, in order to have a shift, we really need the farmers. We need that the farmers come up and say, no, this is not the way we want it. And I thank you so much for this event today. And I hope very much that we will continue this dialogue. Thank you very much.
Just maybe on this point on the protest, because I agree. I mean, the last big protests, so the ones 2 years ago when we had the 2 rounds of CAP simplification, farmers were asking for fair prices. It was one of their biggest things. And what came out of this is simplification and deregulation of environments, because they had a lot of concerns, Mercosur, fair prices, etc. But what happened is the big agri-lobbies, what they took out from this and they presented to the commission was we need less environmental rules because farmers are complaining about bureaucracy. So yes, I completely agree. And they've done it. It's just that afterwards it's taken up and something else comes out. And they were angry about this environmental legislation, this Green Deal, so they focused on that. So yeah, but I agree. But at the same time, I think they have already, and it's not being listened to.
Then they have to do it again.
So sorry, it's I was asking if Maria would give me the floor just to finish. We are way below time. We promised to have a network coffee and there are some nice cookies there. So I heard that the cookies are good. So I invite you to stay for more minutes. Maybe before the last word of Manuela, to ask Manuela if she wants to leave a final message. I would stake you. I started, Manuela, you're not still here. I took Thomas by surprise with a question by surprise that I usually ask to my team. And if I give you one sentence, you have 5 seconds to think. Theo, I'll give you, and what would you say to the church, Theo? A sentence. I will ask Sophie what you would say to the MPs of this house. I would ask Thomas, what would you say to young farmers? And what, Manuel, if I may ask, what you would say to people who say right now applying these principles is not possible? 5 seconds to think and one short sentence to answer.
MEPs would have been easier for me, but I'll try for the church. For me, it's use your. I mean, your message resonates a lot with a certain part of the population, which is not necessarily focused on the environment, on making sure the agriculture is resilient. So use your power, try to convince that.
Okay. Yeah, same for me. But yeah, I would say don't forget about young people. Don't forget about the generation that is coming and that are the ones that need to deal with what is decided right now.
Be cooperative, be the innovation, and form the food system you want to live in. That's what I would say to young farmers. And many young farmers are exactly doing this. We have so fantastic, innovative young people out there on production methods, on marketing methods, on sharing machinery methods, and so on and so forth. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. They're doing it, and we need to encourage them to do even more.
To the audience, I would say use your power. You as consumer have a purchase power, so use it. Don't buy things there's palm oil in it. Look what you're buying. Buy consciousness, buy for your health, buy for the health of your children. And this is, you have a power, you don't know it, but you have a purchase power, so use it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your quick answer. I would just finish by thanking everybody. Oh, I don't know if Manuela, you also want just the final words. You're good. To thank for your presence, the first, and also for people. Sorry, we didn't have the time to address the questions online, but thanks for being here. Also, I think Konstantin and Letizia for helping in organizing this and for your presence. And the final thing is also the cherry on the top of the cake, the nice cupcakes and coffee we have waiting for us. Thank you very much.